happy with the way Uncharted 4 looked.
Okay.
Could it have looked better?
I think it looks about as good as it possibly can. I mean, it's the best looking console game to date, I think. I'd argue.
I would agree with that. And lots of that came out in the reviews quite a lot. And it's always the interesting thing when you hear what you consider to be hyperbole and then you actually play a game and go, oh my God. Because, you know, there is very appropriately, there's a photo mode in there. But what I was aiming at, the PlayStation Pro, what date is it today? It's the 8th of September, 2016. The PlayStation Pro got announced yesterday. Is that right? Same day as the iPhone 7
conference.
Yeah, the PlayStation conference, where, like we say, didn't mention the Vita once, I don't think, which
didn't it?
Bad times. But the PlayStation Pro, so the reaction's actually been remarkably tepid. Doesn't have 4K Blu-ray capabilities and all that stuff. Right. We don't want to get too into the weeds with the tech and that sort of thing if we can help it, just because
I don't know anything to do with
but as you say, that's not a bad place to be, just so you can fire questions off us. But
all right, what does it do?
Well, exactly. And I mean, you are asking specifically, but that could be a good rhetorical question. But
I think when it got announced that it was, or at least rumored that it was going to be this 4K machine, I didn't believe it for a second, because I know from playing on my PC how hard it is to achieve like 4K with a steady frame rate. And
is that something you've tried to get to already?
Well, I haven't personally, but just from meeting with friends who have and so forth, and it's just for a console to achieve that now, like you need 4 times the amount of power or something. It's ridiculous. And anyway, I didn't believe it for a second, so I'm not surprised that it's 4K upscaled rather than native. But I mean, it doesn't bother me actually that much. Like, to me it's just a more powerful machine, and we've yet to see how that will affect the games. If it does make them look better, then I'm sure it probably will get it, because that's one of those things that's just gonna keep niggling at you. It's like, oh, but this is on the more powerful one, and I want to play it the best it can be. It's that mentality.
And how do you guys feel about 4K? Personally, I can give 2 hoots at the moment, but
what's the point?
And also, if you don't have a 4K TV, then, and a lot of people don't.
Does your TV not have to be quite big as well?
For 4K?
Yeah.
No, it's just the resolution. Yeah.
But are you guys struggling with 1080? Like it's.
It's definitely not a. It's not a struggle thing. I think it's a luxury machine. I think we've yet to see still.
Is that all that's
still about?
High dynamic range lighting, and it is very much like
it's just a tech boy's wet dream.
Yeah, if you watch the conference, it felt very much like a tech demo. They were just showing different games of how this will look better on the PlayStation 4 Pro. I mean, they didn't sell it particularly well, I thought.
I don't think they did.
I don't think they got people excited about it. And I was mentioning to Charlie earlier, I think that might have been partly intentional, because I don't think they want people who already have a PlayStation 4 to feel bad.
Yep.
Like, they don't want to push it too hard, because, you're inevitably going to piss people off.
Well,
when you've got this new, more powerful machine that's come out halfway into the PlayStation 4's lifetime.
Yeah, but then when did the Xbox 360 Elite come out? And that was like, what was the?
Sorry, no, continue.
Well, I know you're probably going to say that was like the same thing, but then equally, if it's the same thing and it's offering nothing new, then what's the point of that? More so than what's the point of this one?
Well, I mean, even more so to your point, like I bought an Xbox One Elite, and that actually, the Elite branding, it holds a lot of clout with a lot of people. That's when quite a few people jumped onto the 360.
Yeah.
But all I know that was different was the Elite controller. Which, I mean, say what you will about that thing, but I certainly don't think it's worth 150 quid.
I think with the PlayStation 4 Pro, it's about not dividing the user base, I think, and that's what it could potentially do if there was a vast gap in between the PlayStation 4 and the Pro.
But then why not just make it the one new PlayStation?
Yeah. What, you mean like a 4.5 essentially?
Well, not even a 4.5, because I honestly don't think it's got there. Like, I didn't watch that yesterday as someone who plays primarily on PS4 and go, shit, I need to run out and get that. But if they're going to release a new PS4 Slim or PS4 and a Pro, like,
again, I think it's too early to say at this point, because like, if you look at the specs, the GPU is like more than twice as powerful as the PlayStation 4. So on a raw statistics level, it's there, but as like they haven't proven anything.
And like, as we're just talking about Uncharted 4, like the idea that I don't really care that games don't will look better than that right now, because that was postcard to me. You know, it
Yeah.
looked amazing.
And I think that's in a way that's good, because that'll be fine for a lot of people. I think a lot of people might have the same opinion as you, and then they won't get it. That's fine. And this machine is for people who, you know, they've got the money and they'll say, why not? Give me the slightly better experience, you know.
Sure.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I guess there's a lot, you know, about it that's a bit weird that you'd want to question. Like, surely it cost them a lot to build these.
Yeah.
You know, is it worth it? But
There's also the question of VR and whether they're integrating that with it.
has Xbox done a counterpart?
So Xbox have the HoloLens, which I'm sure we'll get into down the road, which is, I mean, it seems like they're aiming at slightly less game-orientated stuff, but it's that's basically augmented reality instead, which I think is way more exciting, because, you know, like we're looking at, that is, what we're saying. What's that Tom Cruise film? Minority Report.
Yeah.
Like, that's the real, like, sort of thing, and that's the potential for that is insane.
I think VR is a much more exciting thing on the horizon than, you know, slightly more powerful hardware. But I think the hardware is that kind of bridge, if you like, in between that. You know, you're inevitably going to need more powerful hardware for VR.
Yeah, too right.
And
with that in mind, like we're going to be at EGX in Birmingham in a couple of weeks, so do come say hi, and we'll obviously be doing podcasts around then. But we'll probably have a better chance to get some hands-on with VR, with HoloLens, all this sort of stuff. Because, you know, for the layman, like, we play computer games an awful lot, but we're in your guys' shoes where, you know, you might not have played VR yet. I've not seen a 4K TV in a home. This is all unproven, and it's a very exciting time, but then at the same time it's unknown. Like, these companies need to justify why these things are important.
Do they not just want to be cutting edge in one way? Sorry.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, go on.
Well, like, is it not just an excuse to be ahead of the game?
Well, I think so, but I mean, if you think about the fact that Sony's pretty much being propped up by the PlayStation brand, it just seems like a strange idea. They really are putting all their eggs in one basket and overloading the basket. So.
I mean, we should probably mention that they announced the PS4 Slim as well, so that's your other alternative. Which to me is even stranger, which to me is even stranger, because it's like, why would you ever get that when they have this more powerful PS4 Neo? Like, I think they're trying to phase out the PS4 that is now with the slim version.
To be honest, like, why? You know, like, because for me, I remember when the Elite and stuff came out for the Xbox 360. It's because the first one was technically rubbish, and it kept red.
Well, the fail rate was so almost 100% by then, wasn't it? Like,
it was disastrous. I've had no issues with my PlayStation 4.
No.
As a piece of hardware, compared to other consoles, I mean, PS2 was indestructible. But
I mean, it already looks good as well.
It's fine, it's not obsolete in any way.
I don't think they're trying to make it obsolete, though. Like, they did state several times that, you know, you're still going to be playing the same games. Nothing's really going to change. It's just this is going to look slightly better.
Do you think it's the PC influence?
I certainly think so.
Yeah.
And with the PlayStation 4 architecture, you know, I mean, people always talk about the cell processors with the PS3 and how it was so hard to develop for. Now we're in a strange world where, you know, I don't do a lot of PC gaming. I have my MacBook and I play FTL on the train, but it's that strange thing where they're always going to be playing catch up, and that's not the point of a console. The point of a console, at least in my opinion, is plonk it down for 5 years in front of your telly.
Completely.
And I mean, I'm still playing PS3, like we're saying. So there's something to be said about those really defined gaps. You know, I don't always want to be upgrading my whatever it is video card because that's why I have a PS4. And also, just as a little aside, I went to the Tate Modern, and the new building. It's weird how much the PS4 looks like the Switch House, the new building that's on the back of. On the Tate Modern, and then it's that weird thing where the Slim, people have already said it online, but the idea that the Slim, it doesn't look as good, it's not as angular, it's just kind of a more round version. It's disappointing, but
not the best looking thing.
But as a guy who grew up playing Nintendo games, basically, like, how many 3DSs, how many handheld versions have I bought of everything? Because Nintendo never get it right the first time. So.
And there's always, I feel like, for almost every console generation after the PlayStation 1 even, there's been a slim version, there's been an upgraded version, you know, so many years into its lifetime. So, and this isn't really much different, and I feel anyway. So yeah, I don't think it's as big of a deal as perhaps some people do.
You grow up thinking like the cycle will always repeat,
Yeah.
and there will always be a console in 5 to 7 years. There will always usually be a kind of cheaper or slightly different version, the PS or whatever. And now just where for developers and how you make games and the kind of like with PCs and things like that, it is the nature of it is changing.
Very much
and
so.
like consoles like aren't consoles anymore, they're home entertainment systems and all these things, and they're all trying to do their own thing. I mean, obviously the Kinect and that last generation sucked balls, but you know what I mean? It's kind of not. And I just remember when I was younger, I was like, oh, there'll be the PS8 and it'll be that.
Yeah. And console generations are getting longer as well, like the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 generation was like, what, 9 years? Because the Xbox 360 came out in 2006.
Yeah.
So that's a long time. And if
Xbox 360 came out in 2005.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's incredible when you think about it. So that's 8 years, sorry.
That's the really cool thing, just kind of the people I work with, they talk about their kids and the fact that even at 2, these kids pick up iPads. Yeah. And I'm sure every generation does do that thing where they look at what children, be it, well, I'm going to use the Nintendo handheld analogy, but having grown up with an original Game Boy, I've got my new 3DS under the table sort of thing. But, the notion that we, as we're a bunch of guys in our 20s. So, I mean, was your first console, we had an old Super Nintendo and an N64.
Yeah.
What was your...
Sega Mega Drive.
Sega Mega Drive.
Yeah, you were Sega kids?
I'm Sega.
See, that's a conversation for another day. But, okay. And, well, with that in mind, like, just the fact that these kids are going to be picking up, not to have those defined generations.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
How do you grow up kind of learning?
I
don't know. I guess it's just evolving. So
this is like a complete. I mean, this is true for the kind of consoles we were playing, but I always have this, and this is a really lame thought, but with the iPads and you can download the absolute inconsequential rubbish.
Yeah.
I always think like if you were that young and you'd play this game and you'd think that was the golden standard and that would be the one thing, and then if you grew up and you're like, oh, that was just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
It was just like,
Well, I mean, even I think I talked about this in my bio piece for the website, but the idea that, when you're a kid, you strike gold if you're like, you grew up playing GoldenEye or whatever it is, those what are considered classics today. But for every GoldenEye I played, I played a Glover, Iggy's Wrecking Balls, like we were saying on the N64, and it's everyone has their own, like we're saying, the people and the places.
But is there a GoldenEye on the iPad though?
Oh man, what do you specifically a first person?
No, like.
World of Goo is pretty good,
relevant, relative.
And Downwell's on the iPad, guys.
Groundbreaking. Yeah. So.
Well, because so this is a conversation for another day because I don't just want to be flicking through my phone. But there are specifically games that almost kind of I balk at the idea of interactive novels and that sort of thing. Is it called Project Number 9? Not Mighty Number 9, but there was an iPad game that literally you turned it around, you used the camera, that sort of thing, and it didn't seem. It didn't seem like gimmicky at all. I wish I could remember the name right now, but we'll put that in the show notes. But it's just the idea that I think like we're going to talk about the Nintendo NX in a second. Just the spoilers, but just the idea that you can really tell when a console, and maybe we're getting away from that with the PlayStation Pro, just being as you're saying, a computer that you put on your TV. But the fact that with the iPad, things that actually make the most of the hardware they're on. And that's why Nintendo consoles have always been interesting because, it's either be it waggle or a screen or whatever you have. And that's why VR could be interesting because they're games that, will have to adapt to that medium.
Yeah.
And that's exciting going forward because, we're as excited as you guys are. Like,
who was it?
20 years time, it's going to be crazy.
Who was that big company that, what game? We saw it in Sweden, so Charlie would probably be the best person, but they done a relatively, AAA big game, and now the next game they're doing is just like a rock climbing simulator. Was it?
Charlie's our man behind the camera, by the way. He's doing a wonderful job. Thank you, Charlie.
They did Crysis, right? Yeah, it's Crytek.
Talking about Crytek.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, and the game's not called Steep. It's just called Climb, isn't it?
It's literally look at a wall simulator. That's pretty much it.
Sure.
And this is I mean, I'm sure the wall will look great.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, we saw the demo and it was so boring. But well, not the demo. What he was saying.
But I mean, to give them credit, trying something new.
That's that was the point I was trying to make. Is that they're making something specific for that hardware.
I just gonna say with VR, you know, it's a new frontier. There's gonna be games for like a few years, I feel like, that are just trying out new things and figuring out what you can do with it. And that's just an example of that, I guess.
And I mean, that's the thing. We can talk about future fiction and kind of I actually really maybe want to do that as a feature or whatever in the future. But the idea of fictional representations of games. But I remember watching Her, the Spike Jonze film. And have you guys seen it?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
But it's that weird thing where he, Joaquin Phoenix character, after a long day, he sits down and instead of getting a controller out, it's this hologram across the room sort of thing. But he's controlling, the game by like running his hand
weird.
and that sort of thing.
That's weird.
And I mean, it seems weird to us. But what a natural extension, if you can, instead of having your controller, say my little finger is the jump button or whatever. Yeah. And the idea that, kind of the way that, sign language and an extension of the body, the weird thing for me right now is in VR, if I'm doing first person, I'm going to want to walk. I'm going to want to move around. And the one time I've used it, I think it was in, Hive, like the heating service. They were doing, they had a VR setup at the Ideal Home show that we went to. And just the idea that, I had the headset on and I was walking around. And I don't necessarily know if I get motion sick yet. Because I haven't really had a chance to try it out enough. We'll let you guys know after EGX. But the idea with Hive, though, that I was being moved around a virtual space and my legs weren't moving. That was a strange distance.
There's that really funny video of a Korean dude, I think, maybe he's Japanese, and he's like, the game sets the barriers, obviously, but they give him a space to move, and it's so say it's like I think it's a ventilation system, and it's always using the same space, obviously, but the game is kind of changing as that's cool. I butchered the description, but it's actually a really clever example of how you use space.
When we went to see Colin and Sarah and tried out Fantastic Contraption.
So just as a bit of context, who are Colin and Sarah?
So Colin and Sarah are two game developers that we saw for the first issue of the magazine. Yeah. They're in Vancouver, but they're known as like traveling husband and wife game developers, and we thought that was an interesting angle to go and talk to them about, essentially.
But they're making they made this VR game
called Fantastic Contraption, and
which was really good.
Yeah, and we kind of played it in a beta state, as it were, and we were using the HTC Vive, but the controllers weren't the final product or whatever, and that was a very interesting thing of being like, you have this space to move around on a carpet, and Colin kept on saying how it is like having your hands in a VR experience and just being able to move around and have a sense of awareness makes all the difference. And that's one of the reasons why people didn't get motion sickness with that.
Whereas just being chained into an Xbox One controller like that might be a bit...
Yeah, definitely.
He was talking about the inner balance in your ear and so forth.
That's
amazing.
Because if you're moving around with like that, that's going to be a bit like... reading in a car.
I can't actually think of any times just playing on a TV I've ever got motion sickness though. So
F-Zero X.
Yeah, maybe actually that's not a bad one. F-Zero GT for the GameCube was fast. But yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Have you had a chance to play VR yet? And are you excited about something if you haven't played it? Are these just empty promises? And how do you feel about companies basically telling you what to buy before you've even had a chance to experience it? I know we always kind of put our faith in these companies, whoever they are, even our favourite bands. Like if the new record's coming out, it could be terrible, but who knows? But the idea that it is unproven, it is expensive, but will it go away if we don't invest? Okay. So
what's next on the list?
So Charlie, how are we doing for time? Okay, guys. Well, we're at 47 minutes. I hope you're enjoying it still. How about maybe, do you want to talk about the NX for a bit? With that in mind?
Go for it, man.
Again, something I don't know anything about.
Well, I mean, nobody does really. And that's really exciting because, at E3 basically this year, Nintendo have been masters of really, their own fortune for a couple of years now. But the idea that they only really bought one main game to E3 is unprecedented and pretty exciting because I can't really speak for you guys, but Zelda's a very big part of my life.
Yeah.
So they brought one game, and that
was Breath of the Wild, yeah.
And that was what?
Breath of the Wild,
the new Zelda game.
And that's it.
And that's going to be an NX game,
and
were you impressed by that?
One game of the show, funnily enough. Yeah. Yeah.
If you guys want to get a bit closer to the mics, by the way, I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's cool. But yeah, so the idea that with the NX, there are all these insane rumors floating around that they're going to match what the 3DS. You know, they're actually going to have cards instead of discs,
cartridges. Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
lends credence to the idea that it's going to be portable. They're talking about controllers actually being detachable from it. You can plug it into a dock on your telly. And like, as a man who, you know, I've mentioned my 3DS and Fire Emblem is like my favorite thing in the world, but the idea of just being able to just plug that in and just it be on your main TV again.
Yeah, I mean, it is all hearsay at this point, but I mean,
you could do that with Pokemon. Can you? Do you remember that?
On the Stadium, do you mean? Or?
No. Oh, was it? Maybe it was like an extension of a. Yeah, it was like you could connect your Game Boy Color or whatever you had.
Yeah.
And play Pokemon.
Yeah, they actually had it came with the original Stadium. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
but the idea that you plug
red
or blue into.
Yeah, and you could use your Pokemon.
So they're doing nothing new. Anyway.
Well.
Yeah. Precisely.
Don't let them hear you say that too loudly. But I'll like, you know, more on the NX as we get it, I suppose. But even not just from a news standpoint, but my God, like, I didn't buy a Wii U, and you know, I'll put my hands up and say that. But like, oh my God, the NX is going to be just so. I'm just so excited to see what it is.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will about Nintendo, but they're always trying something new. You know,
very much so.
They're not resting on their laurels.
You got it.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd buy it just for Zelda. I honestly don't care what it looks like, you know, as long as I can play Zelda and, you know.
Well, and just, you know, when they actually pull their thumbs out, and we were going to talk about Pokemon Go, but I think that might be a conversation for another time. But the idea of what we're going to do with Pokemon, what they're going to do with Pokemon in the future, you know, but the idea that if Nintendo are putting their portables and you know, console in there, once again they're putting their eggs in one basket as well.
They do that all the time though, don't they?
But then even more so if they're not going to have, you know, if it's just going to be one machine, which is actually very smart from a business standpoint. But then everything that we recognize as traditionally portable or you know, home console experiences, like by proxy, the next Pokemon game is going to be a home console experience.
Yeah.
And I don't. What's your background in Pokemon?
Well, Red is one of the greatest games ever made, so
Agreed.
I guess that's.
Yeah, I played Red and Gold and Ruby.
Yeah,
the one after that, and then I kind of
Ruby's the one with all the trumpets on the soundtrack.
Yeah, that's kind of the last one I played.
I wasn't a fanatic. Like I bought. I guess all I wanted was the shiny cards, obviously.
Yeah.
Get rid of playing the game, and then I remember Red was like, this is super lame, but Red was the first. You know what? Like, I couldn't describe it, but everyone who had a Game Boy at school, if they had that cartridge, that like I got this because I didn't have it originally. I had to get it secondhand from a friend, and it was just that really raw jealousy, and it's like that is the most possessive I've ever felt over it. Like when that game came out, it was like, this is unbelievable. What is this thing? You know. So yeah, I liked that one.
Nice, man.
I didn't play. I played Ruby, which I didn't like. It was rubbish. It was like the generation of Pokemon I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I think the Pokemon designs have got progressively less inventive and just really strange looking, and I think that's what turned me off more than anything, were just the strange designs, really. Because you know, these are things you're carrying around with you, evolving, whatever. Like if you're not attached to them, then you know, why do you care?
And so, you know, we are a bunch of guys in our 20s, but if you are older than us, if you're younger than us, like, what's the reverence for Pokemon these days? Because, you know, as these guys are saying, buying Pokemon Gold.
Everyone was playing Pokemon Go, though, weren't they? Like, because I work in a pub, and the funniest, like, you know, people would come in just because it was a Pokestop, and they'd be, you know, 40, 20, whatever. Yeah. And they'd be like, oh, we're at a Pokestop. And the phone, it's like, no, you're at a pub, and, you know.
Did it actually encourage anyone to buy a pint because they were at a Pokestop?
Yeah, we got,
And did you do the marketing, you know, in that?
No, we didn't know. That was
the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about the Vice article earlier about, you know, rest in peace Pokemon Go. And I wish I could remember the name of the guy now, but, you know, he's advertising it, demoing it on the Apple Watch at the iPhone 7 event yesterday. But then it seems like the world has moved on. So, oh God, just the zeitgeist of computer games is very interesting. But just the notion of, you know, like
Pokemon's always been a fad that keeps being a fad, if you know what I mean. It's never been continuous.
Never-ending fad.
It's been cards, the game.
I think
Pokemon Go,
it's the show.
It's always been popular in Japan, but its popularity in the West has been much more tenuous.
Pokemon's reinvented itself again, you know, kind of.
But I think with Pokemon Go, it's one of those things where it's a mobile game, and by their very nature, you know, they're going to be popular 1 minute and then, you know,
Yeah.
The only reason I'd want to talk about Pokemon Go is that the concept of, you know, augmented reality and stuff. That's the main thing that's really cool.
Yep. Sure.
Not that it's like, you know, they've done it spectacularly. Is he laughing?
He's laughing.
Not that they've done it spectacularly well. Like, well, it's fine, but that I enjoy. You know, like, because like I'm saying, you know, people calling my pub a Pokestop.
Yeah.
Or the pub I work anyway. And you go to a park and all of a sudden it's a gym. It's not a park. Like, that's interesting. But other than that,
I mean, it's fascinating how much it took over the world for, you know,
for a hot second.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah.
Well, my good friends just got back from Sudan, and she was saying, like, you know, while she was over there, Pokemon Go actually became playable. And just the idea of this, you know, just this wave of Pokemon Go, but the fact that you could play it in Sudan was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So. Cool. Okay. So basically, yeah, that's the format. We want to be as kind of conversational as possible. I think it's probably worth talking about things we've got in the pipeline. No specific dates or anything, just because we're still tying those down. But
I'm interviewing one of my favourite bands.
Is that tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
About games, which I never thought was ever going to happen. They're like a really good Canadian punk band.
Yeah.
You've seen them in Brighton.
The wonderful Pup, we should say.
Yeah, we should say Pup. And how we get to tie in games just is great. So doing that.
And I bet they're as excited as you are, really, to talk about games, sort of thing. Like, it seems to be a big passion of theirs.
Yeah.
And as games get a bit bigger, just the fact that, you know, there will be a crossover of these mediums. Like Sylvan Esso are one of my favourite bands on the planet.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, if we could talk to as many of the bands we like and somehow relate it to games, that's.
And having already talked to Paul from 65 Days of Static, if you guys haven't listened to that yet, that was great fun.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a cool guy. Hi, Paul. But yeah, no, I was just going to say, sorry. He's totally watching. No, Paul, if you're listening, let us know. But I was going to say with Sylvan Esso, like the fact that they're named after some weird little thing from Sword and Sorcery.
It's hot in here, isn't it? These lights, I'm just
so you know, one of the nice things about having such a professional setup is we've got these incredible lights called Super Charlie and Alex, but it's hot as
don't
hell
look
in here,
like they do anything, but my God, it's hot.
We're all getting a bit shiny, so going back to shinies. But and then obviously we're going to be at EGX. Do you want to talk about the Chinese room a bit?
Yeah, so we're going to meet Dan, the creative director at the Chinese room, you know, talk about Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, shoot a little film with him. So that should be interesting.
Cool.
That's kind of what's on the immediate horizon.
We've got another soundtrack that I've been informed.
Yeah, another soundtrack?
Yeah.
Oh, so we were going to say about Pup as well. Where are they playing? I think it's sold out, but...
Charlie knows. So, the Dome.
The Dome in Shoreditch? It's not in Shoreditch. Well, wherever it is. It's in London. But I got to see them at the Green Door store. And I was quite drunk, but had an amazing time. And just the fact that...
Got the t-shirt.
I literally bought the t-shirt. And then, we'll be at EGX, which stands for the Entertainment Electronic Games Expo, I guess.
Yeah, it used to be Eurogamer Expo, but they changed it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
wonderful Eurogamer. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you guys are there, come up and say hi, and we might even get you on the podcast. I think the plan at the moment is to do a podcast from a hostel. So
really?
seat of your pants journalism.
That should be interesting. Yeah.
So I thought just the best way to close off. We were talking about an idea for something called the 4 on a 4, and basically, as you can tell, go figure, there are only 3 of us around the table, but. So this will be the 4 on a 3. But we want you guys to email in, let us know. Through social media or whatever, what are our 3 favourite games of a certain subject, be it 3 favourite games that stand out because they've got rainbows in, laptops, hats, whatever it is. Max came up with the brilliant idea of favourite games that have mini games in and favourite mini games in those games. So do you want to kick off with that?
Yeah, so the one I picked out was actually, The Witcher 3. There's a Gwent mini game.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that's
big enough to become its own game.
Yeah, exactly.
About The Witcher.
Yeah. That's that off the top of my head. That is probably my favorite mini game in a game ever.
Cool.
Because it could just be its own thing. It is not too dissimilar to Pokemon cards, really, because throughout the game you're collecting these different cards, all which have different statistics and powers and what have you, and you just battle against other people in the game world who also have Gwent decks. And you gather more cards across.
Gwent deck sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, across the the course of the game.
Yeah.
And eventually there's a tournament towards the end where it's like a high stakes tournament and you take part in it, and that goes off on its whole storyline. So, I don't know. It's
cool,
amazing.
Man. Yeah.
I've just thought of mine because I was panicking. I was like, shit, I haven't done my homework.
Go on.
I wouldn't say it's the best, but I know the one that I spent the most time on was bowling in GTA 4.
Nice. Yeah.
Because there was that achievement. You had to get, what was it, turkeys? 3 turkeys?
Possibly,
yeah,
I remember something like that. Yeah.
I obviously never did it, but I spent days trying to get that stupid achievement.
Yeah. And was it Project Gotham originally that Geometry Wars showed up in?
Possibly.
Yeah, Project Gotham.
I remember playing something that had.
Because it's in a garage, right?
Yeah. It's an arcade machine.
Yeah,
there you go.
Okay.
My example was going to be I don't know if you guys played Retro City Rampage, which was like a fun riff on the old Grand Theft Auto games. But
cool.
I had a very long flight to South Korea a couple of years ago, and that had mini games in it. And one of them was actually, it was made to look like a Virtual Boy game, just black and red, running towards the screen. But it was, I think it was actually made by Team Meat, and it was a Super Meat Boy Endless Runner sort of thing. And I was obsessed with Super Meat Boy, and we'll probably dedicate a whole something to that in the future. But when you're bored and you're just hunting for trophies and stuff, and I played that literally maybe 6 hours, 7 hours in a row, just with that in the background, and managed to complete it in one go. But and like you were saying about Grand Theft Auto as well, the idea, Red Dead having the poker,
that was good,
and just all those kind of meta games. So the idea of just even hunting in Red Dead. You could become the world's greatest.
I don't know if I'd classify that as a mini game in Red Dead, but
well, maybe not. Yeah.
But no, it's a fair example for sure. Yeah.
And obviously all the stuff that shows up in like WarioWare and that that sort of thing. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's a game dedicated to mini games, so
that's
all it is.
The very best.
It's a mini game.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't played Rhythm Heaven before, I'll get you on that, because that's
these rhythm games.
Yeah, man.
Well, I remember. Is it rhythm game?
Yeah.
I remember I used to. So at university, the guy I shared a house with, Sam. He used to play like League of Legends religiously, but to warm up his hands, like for keyboard and mouse, he used to play this like crazy rhythm game, which was like huge in Korea, and it was just like. To be honest, it got to the point where some nights he'd just be like, I can't be else with League, and he'd just
focusing on that.
So good. Right?
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I haven't played a rhythm game otherwise.
Okay, guys. Well, Charlie's just telling us it's about an hour. We don't necessarily know what the format's going to be completely, but I say an hour is probably good for today. You'll let us know as well. Please do. And also, what are your favourite mini games? What are your favourite rhythm games? Like, we've got a lot to talk about in the future, as you can tell. So really, just let us know. As we're saying, this isn't much about the community. It's about talking with our friends, and by extension, you guys are our friends as well. To nick a quote off Greg Miller, sort of thing. But yeah, man. Okay, so
yeah,
man, we did it. If you want to get in contact, if you want to get in touch with us, I should say, is it universe@read4honor.com? That'll come straight to all of us, and we're always going to be looking at these and kind of, if you have any idea for 4 Honor 4s or 4 Honor 3s, as we're saying, but just give us ideas for plans for the future. Let us know if you're going to be at EGX. Let us know if you're going to be at PUP. And just gigs in the future. We'll keep you guys posted as to our movements, and we're even going to try and get some kind of social stuff set up at some point in the future. So that is the first episode of the 4 Honor Journals forecast. We hope you've had fun. Have we had fun?
We promised to get better, but I've had a lot of fun.
Well, anything that you didn't like, let us know. But also, be kind, because, podcasting is a scary business. But have a good evening, guys.
Thank you.
And we're out.
Cheers.